You know those people who can't stand not being the center of attention? Well, in our building, that was Aunt Miriam. Everyone called her Aunt, even though none of us were related to her, probably because she treated every neighbor like a misbehaving grandchild. She lived on the 7th floor, apartment 702, directly above Caroline, diagonally across from me. And for as long as I've lived here, she's claimed to have a gift. Not the kind that comes wrapped with a bow. No. Miriam said she could see things before they happened. Every time she said that, Helen would roll her eyes so hard I thought they'd disappear inside her skull. If she really had powers, Evelyn, she'd know when her laundry's done, Helen muttered once, staring at the washing machine in the shared laundry room, and I laughed. Because honestly, Miriam's powers had the worst success rate since my cousin's blind dates. She'd predict everything from a fire alarm next Tuesday, nothing happened, to a power outage during bingo night. Bingo was fine, but her own lights went out. She'd forgotten to pay the bill. Still, the woman had a presence. Her apartment smelled like lavender and mysterious tea blends, and she wore flowing scarves like she'd just stepped out of a seance. Whenever she walked into the lobby, conversations paused for a second. And of course, she adored making an entrance. One Sunday afternoon, I was having tea by my window, my favorite spot, watching life unfold through lace curtains, when I saw her on the sidewalk, dragging a big grocery bag that looked like it was filled with candles and trouble. By the time she reached the elevator, she already had an audience. Briggs from maintenance, Caroline pretending not to listen, and Helen pretending she wasn't pretending to listen. Miriam leaned on her cane dramatically, sighed, and said, "Something's going to happen tonight." I nearly choked on my tea. Helen snorted. What, another late-night TV marathon? But Miriam didn't answer. She just gave her that cryptic smile that old women with secrets always seem to perfect. "Mark my words," she said. "By midnight, the building will know what I mean." Now, if someone else had said that, we'd have brushed it off. But this was Miriam, the same woman who once organized a seance in the laundry room for good luck. The same woman who made everyone tap the elevator door 3 times before entering to ward off bad energy. So naturally, the rumor mill turned faster than the washing machines. By dinner, everyone was whispering, maybe someone's moving out. Or getting arrested. Or, oh Lord, what if she saw rats? No one really believed Miriam, but no one wanted to be the one caught ignoring her if something happened. I'll admit, I was curious. I even made extra coffee just to stay awake until midnight. At 10:00 p.m., Caroline texted me, "If this is about another blackout, I'm hiding in your apartment." At 11:00, Helen messaged, "Miriam's lights are flickering. Either she's summoning spirits or her wiring's shot again." And at exactly 11:47, I heard it. A loud clang, then another, like metal striking metal, then silence. I froze, halfway between the sofa and the kettle. Caroline called, "Did you hear that?" "Of course I did," I whispered. "It came from above." Apartment 702. Helen appeared at my door 2 minutes later, wearing her robe and holding her phone flashlight like a weapon. "We're checking," she said. I should have said no. I should have gone back inside and pretended I'd gone deaf. But curiosity? It's practically my religion. The hallway was dim, the kind of quiet that makes your footsteps sound louder than they should. When we reached the 7th floor, Miriam's door was slightly open. Now normally she kept it locked with at least 3 bolts. But that night, it hung ajar. Inside, everything smelled of incense. Candles flickered on every surface. There were teacups, tarot cards, and a small glass orb glowing faintly blue. Helen whispered, Oh, for heaven's sake. And there, she was, Aunt Miriam, sitting perfectly still at the table, her eyes half closed like she was meditating. "I told you something would happen," she said without opening her eyes. I glanced at the clock on the wall, 11:59. I remember laughing nervously. "Miriam, you scared half the building." "Not yet," she said calmly. "That'll be in a minute." Then the power went out. Every light, every hum, every sound, gone. The building fell into total darkness. For 2 full seconds, all I could hear was my heartbeat, and Helen muttering something that sounded like a prayer and a curse mixed together. And then, just as suddenly, the lights came back on. Everything looked the same. Miriam hadn't moved, except the glass orb wasn't glowing anymore, and the clock now read 12:01. "See?" she said, opening her eyes and smiling like she'd just won the lottery. "I was right. That night, I didn't sleep." The next morning, half the building swore they'd felt something strange. A cold wind, a tingling in the hands, a whisper in the vents. The rumor? Miriam had finally done it. She'd actually predicted something real. Even Helen, queen of skepticism, looked shaken. "Coincidence," she said. "Just coincidence." But she didn't sound like she believed it, and for the first time, neither did I. If you've ever met someone who swears they have a gift, hit the like button. I promise this story gets weirder. And if you'd rather not miss what happens next, subscribe. Because trust me, what came after midnight that night still gives me chills. By sunrise, the whole building was in a state of delicious hysteria. It's amazing how fast gossip travels when people have nothing better to do than stare through peepholes and pretend their lives are normal. One little blackout at midnight, and suddenly we were living inside a supernatural thriller. I could hear it from my kitchen window. Mrs. Holloway on the first floor whispering to Mr. Briggs that Aunt Miriam summoned the darkness, like she'd chanted a spell over the circuit breaker. Meanwhile, someone else swore they'd seen a blue light near her window. Probably the reflection from her ridiculous glowing orb. By the time I went down for mail, everyone was already in the lobby pretending to not be there for gossip. Helen was perched near the mailboxes like a hawk in pajamas, and Caroline was scrolling her phone, the universal sign for I'm listening, but pretending not to. "You heard?" Caroline said, glancing up. "Heard what?" "That we survived the apocalypse?" "Miriam's calling it a successful manifestation," Helen said, sipping her coffee like it was tranquilizer. "She said that?" "Not exactly," Helen said. "She said, the veil was thin last night, whatever that means." I sighed. It means she read too many fantasy novels. And right on cue, the elevator dinged and out floated Aunt Miriam, herself, literally floated, in that long, gauzy robe that made her look like a cloud of lavender perfume. She had a silk scarf wrapped around her hair and an expression that said, "I told you so," without needing to say it. "Good morning, my dear skeptics," she said cheerfully. "Morning," I muttered. "How's the veil today?" "Still thin," she replied, winking. I swear Helen almost spilled her coffee. The worst part? People were starting to believe her. The woman who'd once predicted rain on Thursday during a drought was suddenly the oracle of Building 42. That day, everything felt slightly off. The lights flickered once in the hallway. A package went missing. And Mr. Briggs swore he smelled smoke that no one else could. Every tiny inconvenience was now a sign. And Aunt Miriam? She was glowing. Metaphorically this time. You could tell she loved it. At 3 p.m., she cornered me by the elevator. "Evelyn," she said, lowering her voice like we were in a spy movie. "I'm having visions again." "Of course you are," I said. "Did the spirits tell you my Wi-Fi password?" "Something will happen soon," she said seriously, "on this floor." I rolled my eyes, but a tiny shiver ran down my spine anyway. Because, let's be honest, after what happened the night before, a part of me was listening. By evening, Helen came knocking on my door, hair tied back, armed with gossip. "You'll never believe this," she said. "Try me," I replied. "Caroline saw Miriam with Mr. Collins in the storage room, said they were whispering." Whispering or arguing? Whispering, which is worse. Because if she's converting him to the dark side, we're all doomed. We laughed, but I couldn't help glancing toward the ceiling, imagining Miriam pacing her apartment, muttering spells, or worse, journaling. That night, I made the mistake of scrolling through the building's group chat. It was chaos. Maybe she cut the wires on purpose. My cat hasn't slept since midnight, coincidence? Don't mock her. My aunt had premonitions too before winning the lottery. It was official. Logic had left the building. Then, at exactly 8:17 p.m., the fire alarm went off. No smoke, no fire. Just the kind of sound that makes you instantly confess sins you didn't commit. Everyone poured into the hallway in various states of panic and bad hair. Helen had a hair roller stuck to her bangs. Caroline was holding her, half-done manicure up like she'd been interrupted mid-art exhibit. And there, at the far end of the hall, stood Miriam. Calm, serene, smiling. "I told you," she said. The energy shifted. Helen groaned. "The only thing shifting is my blood pressure." Then Mr. Briggs came rushing up the stairs, red-faced and panting. "System tripped," he said. But I checked. No fault. No fault. No explanation. Just like the blackout. And that's when I noticed something. Miriam wasn't gloating this time. She looked expectant, like she was waiting for something more to happen. "It's not over," she said softly. I didn't sleep that night. Every sound in the pipes felt ominous. I caught myself staring at the ceiling, wondering if she was awake upstairs, watching the same shadows crawl across her walls. The next morning I went up to check on her. Knocked once, twice, nothing. The hallway smelled faintly of incense again, that sweet lavender mixed with something metallic. I called her name. "Miriam." The door creaked open. The apartment was dim, curtains drawn, candles burned down to little stubs. She sat at her table, facing the window, the same crystal orb glowing faintly blue. "You shouldn't sneak up on people," I said, stepping inside. "I wasn't asleep," she replied. "I was listening." "To what? The pipes again?" "To the building. It hums when truth's about to rise." Now normally I'd laugh, but the way she said it, her voice low and calm, like she'd been waiting for hours, sent a chill through me. "Miriam," I said gently, "you're scaring people." "Good," she said. "Fear opens ears." That's when she looked at me, right at me, and said something I can't forget. "The next time the lights go out, someone's secret will come to light." I felt an actual tremor run through the floor. Maybe imagination, maybe the pipes again, but it felt real. I left her apartment with my heart thudding and my mind racing. I told myself it was just another one of her cryptic performances. But deep down, I knew it wasn't over, and sure enough, 2 nights later, it happened. I was in my kitchen making tea when, click, Everything went black. Total silence. No hum from the fridge. No elevator drone. Nothing but my heartbeat echoing in the dark. Then, a scream. From downstairs. I grabbed my flashlight and hurried out, half expecting to see Miriam in a witch hat conducting a seance. Instead, everyone was in the lobby. Caroline clutched her phone flashlight. Helen held a slipper like it was a weapon. Mr. Collins, our building manager, was standing near the mailboxes, pale as paper, holding something small and black, a notebook. "We found this in the storage room," he said quietly, tucked behind the fuse box. I looked closer. Old leather cover, no label. Helen snatched it from his hands and flipped it open. Her mouth fell open. "Oh my God," she whispered. "These are about us." Inside were pages filled with tidy cursive, notes, observations, arguments, gossip, things that no one outside our circle should have known. Helen borrowed Caroline's charger and never returned it. Briggs keeps extra beer behind the boiler. Evelyn keeps her lights on until 3 a.m., even when she says she's asleep. "Excuse me?" And the last line, the very last, said, "Truth always finds a way through the dark." Signed, simply, M. I think everyone stopped breathing for a full 5 seconds. "She's writing this down," Helen said, voice shaking. "She's been watching us." "Or listening," Caroline murmured. "She said the building talks to her." I wanted to laugh, but it came out as a nervous little squeak. We rushed upstairs, straight to her door, and once again it was open. Candles flickering. Curtains fluttering from the draft. The orb glowing on the table, that eerie, calm blue. But Aunt Miriam? Gone, no sound. No footsteps. No trace. Just that soft, humming silence, like the building itself was holding its breath. We searched for her for hours. Mr. Briggs even checked the roof. Nothing. The next morning, a note appeared under my door, folded neatly, scented faintly of lavender. "Don't worry, dear," it said. "Some truths take time to be seen. Keep listening." Signed, M. That's the thing about people like Miriam. You never really know if they're lying, lucky, or genuinely seeing beyond what the rest of us can. But after that night, none of us ever laughed at her again. And sometimes, when the lights flicker at midnight, I swear I still hear her humming. If you've ever met someone who swore they had a gift, leave a comment below. Do you believe in intuition, or was Aunt Miriam just a very skilled observer? Don't forget to like the video, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because the final part of this story, let's just say it changed how I see this building forever. The night Aunt Miriam disappeared, the building felt different, not haunted, though Helen would insist otherwise, but charged like the air after lightning. Every step down the hall sounded like it carried weight, like the walls themselves were listening. For the first time since I'd moved in, people locked their doors. Even Caroline double-bolted hers, and she's the kind of person who thinks fear attracts wrinkles. The morning after the blackout, a thick unease hung over the lobby. No one wanted to talk about the notebook, but you could feel it in every glance. Mr. Briggs avoided eye contact. Helen looked like she hadn't slept. Caroline wore sunglasses indoors, which frankly is how I knew she'd been crying. And then there was me, sitting on the edge of my sofa, staring at that lavender-scented note from Miriam. Some truths take time to be seen. Keep listening. What did that even mean? I wanted to crumple it up and throw it away, but I didn't. Something about it felt unfinished. By noon, the theories had begun. Maybe she ran away. Maybe she was taken. Maybe she turned into vapor. Helen, of course, went with option 4. She's hiding to prove a point. That night, we held an unofficial emergency meeting in Caroline's apartment, meaning wine. Gossip and nervous laughter. She can't just disappear, Caroline said, pacing. Maybe she predicted her own vanishing act, Helen said dryly. Very on brand. Stop, I said. She left a note. That means she wanted us to find it. Caroline frowned. You think there's more? I think, I said. She never did anything halfway. And that's when I noticed something strange. On Caroline's kitchen counter, under the flickering light, sat a small object, a glass marble, or so I thought, glowing faintly blue. Where did you get that? I asked. Found it by the elevator this morning, she said. Why? Because, I whispered, it looks exactly like Miriam's crystal. Helen blinked. You think she's scattering them now? Like breadcrumbs? I think, I said, she's not done talking to us. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about the notebook, and that eerie little phrase, truth finds a way through the dark, so naturally, I did the sensible thing. I grabbed a flashlight, a sweater, and decided to investigate. I started with the storage room where the notebook had been found. It smelled like dust, metal, and regret. Boxes stacked high, a single flickering bulb overhead. The fuse box sat in the corner, humming quietly. I crouched down and noticed faint marks on the wall, circular patterns drawn in chalk. And next to them, another lavender note pinned with tape. If you're reading this, it means you're still curious. Good. The building rewards curiosity and punishes ignorance. No signature this time, but I didn't need one. Helen would have killed me if she'd known where I was. So, obviously, I texted her, storage room, you might want to see this. It took her 5 minutes to arrive, flashlight in one hand, sarcasm in the other. You realize this is how horror movies start, she said. We're fine, I said. It's just dust and… The lights flickered, once, twice, then steadied. Helen exhaled sharply. Say your ghosts to yourself, Evelyn. But the strangest thing happened next. When I touched the chalk marks, the wall clicked. A panel shifted slightly, like it had been recently moved. Behind it, a hidden compartment. Inside, a stack of papers bound with a red ribbon. And on top, another note. Every building has its stories. This one just likes to repeat them. I opened the papers. They weren't recent. The ink had faded. The pages were brittle. But the handwriting? Oh, it was familiar. Elegant, looping cursive. Helen squinted at the top of the page. Miriam Carter, she read aloud. Building Council Report. 1982, I blinked. That's impossible. Miriam's old, but she's not. 40 years of notebook old. Maybe her mother? Helen offered. Or someone she was named after. But the resemblance in handwriting was uncanny. Even the looping M, the same signature on the last page of our notebook. I flipped through the report. It described the same building, same floor plan, same structure, but with different tenants. The last entry stopped me cold. Lights flickered again tonight. Found another notebook behind the fuse box. Must be coincidence. Helen leaned closer. Coincidence, my foot. We both stared at each other. Because either we were part of a decades-long prank, or something very strange was repeating itself here. I took the documents home, spread them on my coffee table, and compared the handwriting side by side. Every loop, every curve, identical. And as I sat there, surrounded by candlelight, I realized the impossible. Miriam's visions weren't new. They'd been happening for decades. The next morning, Helen burst into my apartment without knocking, as usual. You're not going to believe this, she said. Caroline saw her. Miriam? Yes, last night. On the 7th floor? Said she was wearing that ridiculous turquoise robe. Did she talk to her? No, said Miriam, just smiled, whispered something, and vanished near the elevator. I ran a hand through my hair. Maybe she's alive. Maybe she never left. Or maybe, Helen said, eyes wide. She wasn't supposed to. That's when the power flickered again. Once, twice. Then the lights dimmed, not off, but softer, almost like candlelight. And the elevator, the old, creaky one that barely worked, dinged. Helen and I froze. The door slid open, no one inside. Just a faint smell of lavender, and on the floor, a final note. Truth doesn't disappear, dear. It just changes apartments. We stared at it in silence. Then Helen whispered, "I'm moving." I picked up the note. It felt warm, like someone had just written it. For days, the building buzzed again. Theories, speculations, ghost stories. But after a week, the tension faded. The lights stopped flickering. The orb vanished from Miriam's apartment. Life went back to normal, or as normal as it ever gets here. Until one morning, 2 weeks later, a new tenant moved into apartment 702. A quiet woman in her 60s, polite smile, soft voice. She introduced herself as Margaret, and when she shook my hand, I felt something cold, metallic, press into my palm. A key. Small. Silver. "For safekeeping," she said with a wink. "You never know when the lights might go out." I opened my mouth to ask what she meant, but she was already walking down the hall, humming softly, the same tune Miriam used to hum. That night, I locked my door twice. But when I turned off the lamp, I noticed a faint blue glow from the shelf. My teacup, reflecting something that wasn't there. And I swear, if you listened closely enough, you could hear it too, the soft hum of the building. Like a whisper behind the walls. People always ask me why I stay here, in apartment 42. They say it's creepy, that this building has too many stories, too many shadows. But here's the truth. Once you start listening, you realize every wall, every floorboard, every flickering bulb has something to say. And me? I've stopped trying to explain it. I just listen. Because sometimes, at midnight, when the lights blink once and the air smells faintly of lavender, I pour myself tea, sit by the window, and smile. "You were right, Miriam," I whisper. The building really does talk. If you've made it this far, tell me in the comments. Do you think Aunt Miriam truly had powers? Or was she just a legend who understood people better than anyone else? And if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Because around here, there's always another whisper waiting in the walls.